folks. Everybody, including those online. Right, we now move on to items found on page 77, 2358, Alexander Airport runway resurfacing, and that is your item, Tina.
Thank you for introducing it.
That's my pleasure.
Welcome.
Anything I can do to help?
For the aforementioned.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll take the report as read, but I'll just do a quick summary. Basically, it's for you to consider approval today for additional funding required to complete the runway resurfacing at Alexandra Airport. We had a budget of 486,000, which was based on previous cost estimates with added inflation, and that was included in the last long-term plan. And resealing was planned for this spring or summer, 2022-23. But there's been quite a lot of cost escalation since then. And we've had a updated cost estimate, the reseal of 930,000, and that includes a 15% contingency for price increases from now until next spring summer. So this leaves a shortfall of around 445,000. We've had quite a lot of feedback from airport users that are a bit concerned of the safety of their planes at the moment because there's been a deterioration of the surface, and we've had repairs that we've had to do as well. So keeping the focus of continued safe operation of the airport in mind, if the reseal is delayed for another year, it's considered that be more repairs will be required and safety risk will increase and cost will increase as well. So we had a new hangar site development scheduled in 2023-24. So we've got a budget of around 900,000 of that in the current LTP. So we're proposing that we use some of that money to cover the shortfall for the runway reseal. As a result of delays with that hangar accommodation, the demand seems to have dropped off. We've only got 6 people now on our waiting list, and we had 30. So we need to do a bit of an exercise to see whether that demand is still there, and so that'll be done in the next LTP. Yeah, so that's what the proposal is. Are there any questions?
I've got one. So if we do use that money down the track, if there was that demand, would we still be able to do that work later using that money for the redevelopment now? So is it something that could happen down the track?
The development?
Yeah,
Yes.
if we use that money now. And the other question was, do you think that the resurfacing of the runway could actually then attract more interest for people to want hangars if we actually had a better runway?
I think it'll mean that people will still want to come. I don't know if it'll increase, but it just means that people know that that runway is in good condition. Yeah.
Does the sealing of the runway include only the runway strip, or will it have some of the taxiways and aprons as well?
The apron was done only a few years ago. I think it was done in 2018. The taxiways will need to be scheduled into the long-term plan.
So that
Doesn't
is
include
just the runway.
just the runway
Yeah.
piece.
And will the using none of that current reserves have any impact on that commercial site development? That the
No, it just needs to be done anyway. Yeah, so it doesn't affect that part of it.
Any other questions? No.
No, that's fine. Could you just give an outline of landing fees, how they're charged and what level they're at and what kind of income it brings in?
So they're $10 a landing at present. We do actually have a system in place now where we can record how many landings we have. But at the moment we're not sort of assessing how much we're losing or how many people aren't paying. But we're probably up to about $1,500 to $2,000 a year in terms of landing fees. It just for our.
So you don't know how many, excuse me, are not paying?
No, I don't have that.
And if you didn't know how many, you wouldn't know who they were?
No. We can see who's landing, but some of the people just pay in the donation box, so we don't necessarily know who those people are. We only know the people that are paying online and give their.
So do other similar airports have better monitoring
we pay for an upgraded system where, the AIM system they use also does invoicing. But we don't have that at present.
Is that something we should be considering?
Can do. Yes, I'm not sure what the cost
And
is.
we know at our level, our fees are comparable to other fields?
Yes, they are, yeah,
They are
smaller rural airports, yes.
sealed field, sealed runways.
Yeah, there's quite a few other ones that don't charge huge landing fees as well.
We're interested to maybe have some more information and explore $10. That sounds like a lot of money.
Seems pretty cheap.
Given the challenges that some other departments, both here and other regions, have had with the quality of seal being used, do you anticipate that this runway will last as long as we hope? Do you have any indication on the quality of the seal that's going to be?
Not off the top of my head, but Fulton Hogan have done quite a few other airport reseals. So they are experienced and the type of seal is the most the best for us.
We also have, luckily, CFTC have employed a ex-contractor, Shane, who's been assisting us for the pricing, and he's really good in this area of looking at what their product looks like and what the outcomes can.
And I think timeframe on how long it would last? Do you have an estimated lifespan? Lifespan, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Elsie.
Top of my head, but I can find it.
Yeah, so usually when they do a reseal, they look at about a 15-year lifespan. It would also depend though largely on how many aircrafts are coming in on the impact zone, but they usually reinforce that zone a little bit more to handle, get more longevity out of it.
Any other questions?
Just following up on your one, if it's 15 years for 900 grand, and we're starting to depreciate at the appropriate rate, so that we've got the money.
Yep.
I feel like it was last done
93.
significantly more years ago than 15.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yes. It was a chip seal finish one.
Right. So we have recommendations A, B and C on page 77. If anybody would like to move those. Thank you, Sally. Seconded Martin. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one's yours, Stu, and Lee will be taking that because
I was away.
your other.
Writing bylaw 23.5.9, possibly.
Thank you very much. Firstly, apologies for Quinton and for Paul who couldn't be here today. I'll take the report as read, but would simply just point out the purpose of this report is to align the infringements and offences that are set out in the land transport offences regulations, and to make us consistent with what's happening nationally, and to follow on from the report that was earlier heard. Could you adopt the bylaw today? But that will use that in an enforcement plan for parking where we need it, and the regularity of that, still not looking parking enforcement 7 days a week from that perspective, but where the pinch points are, we'll look to address that. Happy to answer any questions.
Discussion?
I've just got one question. That was brought up, I see, was the narrow streets. So people parking on grass bridges and narrow streets, and I just wondered, do we have any solutions for that?
Absolutely. So educate first and foremost, which would be our plan, but also the infringements for it. The way that the regulations are written, it's kind of challenging because of the fact that it talks about sort of ornamental grasses, which is not what our bridge is necessarily on, but having appropriate signage where it's needed for that and educating our community in relation to that first and foremost. I guess narrow streets in some respects is positive because it slows traffic down, which is what we're trying to do as well. So it improves safety from that perspective, but the education is needed there first and foremost.
Yeah, I guess it's we're going to come into criticism where if we're looking at specific areas to try and regulate this, and while I don't disagree with that, someone's gonna turn around and say, well, Joe Blogs down the street didn't get a ticket, but I did, so what's the difference? If you've got a rule in place, how are we going to combat that, which is inevitably going to happen?
Absolutely, and absolutely fair comment and questions all. I think what we need to look at is balancing the level of enforcement and where we actually need to do it. We have a whole raft of rules in place that are not necessarily enforced every day, but when we're finding problems, and certainly nationally, there's been a lot more news in relation to people parking on footpaths, and I'm sure yourselves will have seen that in the media news. That's a really important element. It's very important for pedestrians, and so focusing on those areas. If we have issues with parking on verges, educating vehicle owners, particularly if they're repeat offenders, we can find out who they are and have those conversations first and foremost. If that's something that we need to do more wider across the district, then that's something that we need to consider, and then how we pay for that. Looking for such enforcement being cost neutral, therefore our red tails not necessarily bearing the cost when it's individuals that are committing an offence.
Neil first, then Chair. Neil.
Thanks, Stu. Lee, just trying to understand that will this change actually provide some teeth to those people that are parking on the areas that aren't the footpath, as in the verge, the guttering over their driveway entrance, being the bit between the formed road and their section boundary? Is it going to pick up, and dare I say, parking on the wrong side of the road even as well as that, in terms of on the same verges? Because I'll give you the list of where they all are, but it's a bit of an epidemic going on at the moment. So is this change going to pick up those, or is that still something that we need to work on?
No, thanks, Neil. And I think, aligning with the offences that are stipulated in the regulations enables us, it gives us that consistency from a national point of view, whereas we might have been slightly an outsider in relation to that, but we still need that education first and foremost, but then being able to enforce it. The other part of that, Neil, is, as I alluded to earlier in an earlier report, is that we've now got the back-end system in place, basically. So when you issue an infringement, the ability to ensure that we're reminding the recipients of that within the statutory timeframes, and if they don't pay it, the ability to pass that over to the Ministry of Justice for them to pick up that infringement that hasn't been paid, basically, with the recipient for that, rather than officers of council having to do that chasing, basically. So we've now got that system in place to ensure that can happen where we didn't have previously.
So will that pick up the issue of parking on the verge? That's because I don't know the verge is defined in the Local Government Act as being the footpath.
No, it's not, but within the offences and penalties regulations, that is part of an offence that is identified under the road user rules.
Yep, excellent. That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Sorry, it's just to take that, a continuation of that. I mean, I drive around, I work in the industrial area of Cromwell. Now, there's very few footpaths, and majority of the cars are on the grass and on the verge. What's the expectation? Are they all supposed to be just parked on the road? The roads are quite wide, don't get me wrong, they are. Yeah. But there's next to no cars parked on the road.
Absolutely, and so if that's what we don't want to happen in that location, we would start we'd have to educate first and foremost.
Right.
And so talking to local businesses in relation to this is not okay, and the expectation is for you to park on the roads, and that might have that next effect whereby people are parking on the roads, and therefore do we want to limit the amount of time people parking on the roads? So there's always a knock-on effect, and that'd be part of that schedule that was alluded to through the long-term plan elements as well. That will be a report that will come back to you in the future in relation to what areas we believe that we need to enforce and reasons why we may need to change what that schedule currently says to what it may say in the future, which will continue to change over time.
Have we got a potential, not contradiction, but clash between housing which might have 3 or 4 vehicles per house, and nowhere to park, either because of narrow roadways or just so you've got an actual situation where, and then you introduce a bylaw and you address it. But how consistent can you be in practice and enforce it in certain areas where there is no other solution for the people who are living there?
So I guess that matter comes back to that schedule one of what's the level of enforcement that we're looking for, and so to use that example, if we've got a house whereby they've got 3 or 4 vehicles, but we've only got space for one on their property, then that's 3 more vehicles potentially that are parked on the street. We may be comfortable with those 3 vehicles parked in the street in that location, but in another location, because of the high use, we're not okay. We might put some time restricted parking in that
So you've got
location.
the ability to.
Absolutely, and that's your decision that we would bring to you, to say this is what we feel it should look like in that schedule 1, and these are the reasons, and then you can either say yes or no, not can be of which we can benefit is.
Yes?
Just I guess just a note.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I,
Yeah.
sorry.
What defines the cycle path for a cycleway?
That's a good question, and I can't remember the exact definition off the top of my head, but that is specified in the rules. Of if we have identified, or we being the council have identified X as a cycleway, so not all footpaths are necessarily cycleways, but the rule that we're talking about does talk about footpaths and cycleways. So if I'm parked on the cycleway and on the footpath, we've got the same thing.
Just probably more a comment, and I noted this from the submission, is that we have complaints from our public saying that the footpaths aren't good enough. Yet until this bylaw comes in, we really need to have some teeth to be able to, and some of the cars are actually doing damage to the footpaths. So it's I'm hoping that this will allow us to, I guess, have a mechanism to make sure that some of our footpaths last a little bit longer in certain areas, which is public safety as well.
Absolutely.
Just another safety issue. I don't know how important it is wheel bins on the footpath. When you've got mobility scooters and wheelchairs. I know there's one man that takes his life in his hands every day going down the road on the road because often he can't get in the footpath. It's just a safety issue that probably doesn't come under this, but.
Yeah, that's a challenging topic in relation to, people think waste bins being collected, but I'll take on board and see what we can, how we could address that. It may just be 1 or 2 specific individuals that we might need to do some education for versus more of a wider issue. I'm unsure on
Yes.
Stu, I'm rapidly clicking through to highlight, and I'm just following up on Ed's comment. Should we have the definition of cycleway in there? I'm just seeing if it's actually put down that if you're parking on the cycleway, But if we don't identify what a cycleway is in our glossary or whatever.
Sure, and I guess this is where we look at whether or not we feel that we want that repetition. So the definitions around the Land Transport Act as well through the road user rules, and whether or not we want to re-emphasise that in our bylaw, absolutely we can. But arguably it's not necessarily required because we have got those definitions and statutes already.
I think if you clear in mind of anything, it's not required, then it's not required. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
Just one thing. Speaking of cycleways, is it made very clear that cars, vehicles other than bikes are not allowed to go on them? Because I know that myself, I've been walking down, and I came out at the yacht club and a car followed me all the way when I was out walking the dog.
So the roading bylaw is to do with stationary vehicle offences. So you travelling in that is not something that's enforceable by a parking officer of council. If you park in there, then it is enforceable by an officer of council.
Okay.
That confront them so they get out from the vehicle station.
So that would be more our colleagues in the police to deal with that.
Any other discussion? Well, the recommendation the council receives and adopts. This is significant notes, the submission to receive and adopt a bottle of policy. Can I have someone to move that? Tracy, someone second that? Sally, all those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you, Lee. Stepping in at late notice, greatly appreciated. And Saskia, you're back with us again. The review of the internal audit program, councillors, you'll find this at page 171.
Good afternoon, everybody. A very straightforward paper in front of you. At the request of the Audit and Risk Committee at their last meeting, I've brought this to you. What we have presented to Audit and Risk, and they have endorsed it, is for us to go and do a thorough review of our program. It was last looked at in 2020, and a lot has happened in the world since COVID, all the workforce challenges. And what we had coming up, which you'll see as in red in the paper, in the table there, we were just questioning if those were the most critical things that we should be looking at as an organisation. So the review will involve interviews with the executive team and the independent chair of Audit and Risk, and a draft report will then be produced and presented up to the next Audit and Risk Committee. So just for awareness that that piece of work is underway. Any questions?
Any questions, councillors? All in favour?
Yes.
Thank you, Stu, seconded Martin. All those in favour? Aye, against, that's carried. Now we've got to change, thank you, Saskia, to the register of delegations. It's pretty self-explanatory. We take it as read, Wayne?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Nothing to add to it. Anyone wish to question or comment? Sally, have you got anything to add to it? Again, it's
No, our walking committee will now be its own committee.
cool.
Yep.
Committee's happy with that?
Yep.
Community board's happy with that?
Yep.
Someone want to move it? Tamer, seconded Sarah. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Next paper is mine. Again, it's pretty self-explanatory. We generally take the mayor, the deputy mayor, and one councillor to the LGNZ conference, which in this year is in Otago Christchurch. The deputy mayor is unable to go. I asked who is available to go from council because it's quite a big time commitment. Councillor Ali has put her hand up. No one else has. So the recommendation is simply that I'm Councillor Ali attend from the government side of the organisation, and that she and I be or I be the presiding delegate and she be the alternate delegate for the AGM. Someone other than Tamer want to move that?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ian. Seconded, Neil. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Brings me to my report, and as already noted by Councillor Stu Duncan, how nice the water tastes.
Beautiful.
Beautiful water today. That was a real thrill, and I think, as I say here, I think it was back in, God knows when, 2005 or something. I was first on community board, and getting hassled right from the word go. The phone started to ring even before the election result was announced, saying do something about the water. And it has been a long and tortuous path, both from trying to find a bore site in Alexandria that didn't have quite high lime in it, through to deciding Clyde was the way to go, and then having Lindavia and rock snow and COVID and everything else come along. So it really was a wonderful day, and a wonderful day for the staff, the contractors, and everyone who've been involved in making that happen. And I just hope that the people of Alexandria in particular, I didn't notice the difference in Clyde, and they didn't tell me the tap had been turned, so that was good. But I reckon I can taste the difference today here in Alexandria, so that's good.
Fresh and crisp. So fresh to use.
Yeah. Brilliant. Following our last meeting, Tamer, Sally and I attended the Zone 5 and 6 combined meeting. Dylan came along as well. It was the first chance for us to all come together. So Zone 5 and 6 is all of the South Island councils, including, don't forget, the regionals do as well. We did go our separate ways for a while to discuss under the government's new idea, latest and greatest idea on the three waters, to have a Canterbury West Coast entity and Otago and Southland entity, what to do in terms of how do we start to come together. And I still think that's relevant whatever happens in October, because the national opposition party is wanting regional council controlled organisations to be looked at. So we tried to make a start on the discussion. We continue to try to make a start in the discussion, and we'll keep trying to make a start in the discussion. What more can I say? Have to answer any questions on that.
I didn't attend.
Didn't you?
No, I was sick.
That's right. You were too. All right.
You're there in spirit.
Yeah.
You were, yeah. How can I feel that? I was privileged to attend Anzac Day in Toto, and I was there with Councillor Stew and Board Chair Rob Hazlitt. It was cold. There was a lot of people there. Stepping back from the monument and turning around to look, It's hard to tell because the crowd just disappeared into the dark. Didn't there? A couple of hundred easy. Yeah.
It's a big day.
Just a remarkable turnout, and a really good family service at Waipiata as well. I've been all around the district doing coffees and chats. I know there, and these are why these are so great. As you said yesterday, Stu, you know, the drop in money at Otago.
Yeah, right.
Just how many have you had?
Monday.
Monday.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
no memories now.
Yeah, it is, no doubt. But anyway, it's just that example I give there, I think was a really important one of the value of just getting out and hearing, because you don't know what you don't know. I attended a meeting of the Alexandra and Clyde Business Group, who had the topic as Alexandra area being held back. And I believe that the statistics that were given there show that the answer is no. We've had GDP growth of 7.5% in the Vincent ward versus 6.3 across Central Otago and 5.3 nationally. Speaks for itself, really. Employment growth in Vincent 5.1 last year compared to 2.4 across Central Otago and 3 nationally. And if you look at our population between the 13 census and the 22 estimates, population of Alexandra has grown at 26.8%, twice that of Invercargill and Wangaroo, 3 times that of Balclutha and 4 times that of Gore. And I'll quote what I've written here for the record. These figures show a town not just going ahead but surging ahead, and it remains utterly baffling to me why a small number of people who claim to be business leaders in the town continue to try to claim the opposite. It's also exciting to see the start of the rollout of the green bins across the district. They will put our bin service on a par with anywhere in the country, and in the long run will save money and will immediately reduce waste on landfill. It's a win-win-win situation, something the community should be proud of. I've been a little bit baffled by people, a number of people on Facebook going, what a ridiculous idea, it's never going to work, without having ever tried it, so we'll see how we go. And on the flip side of that is the closure of Wastebusters, a great community facility. It's got to be emphasised though that this wasn't a council facility, and of course QP and the team are looking into where we fit into the parts of the space that's left on. There's other things I'll put there and have to answer any. I'm going to go back a step actually, I'm going to jump one in. And I'll probably report it on the next meeting, but last week Louise and I attended the, what was it, Louise? It was a LGNZ meeting of all the councils, followed by a sector meeting where we broke into rural and provincial. And on the day we were with all the councils, we had Nicola Willis come and speak on National Party's viewpoint on local government moving forward. Very interesting speaker. We then had the current Minister of Local Government, Karen McAnulty, come and speak again. They were able to hear direct from us, our thoughts, and they heard them loud and clear. On top of that, sitting on National Council with LGNZ, I'm able to have direct influence into what LGNZ is putting up as its manifesto, essentially, to all the major political parties. We're having discussions with all the major political parties on here is what local government needs from you. And I just note that because that's all done through being members of LGNZ. I note a small council in the North Island has pulled out of LGNZ today. And I'd love to see how they're going to get to sit down with the Minister of Local Government, the opposition spokesperson for local government, and talk to all the parties on what they want when they take their big stick of 40,000 people or whatever it is to Wellington and try to get heard. Good luck. So that's my report. Happy to take any questions or comments.
That's the national manifesto from LGNZ for the political parties that will be generated by the council. There won't be any reference back to member.
There will be reference back, and if you keep looking at that, keeping it local, that comes.
There won't be any input request. It'll be generated by the council. It's
generated through National Council, of which I represent us on. So yeah, I try to get the feedback of what we want. It's a very broad ranging, like, you know, if you're going to have reforms, make sure we're funded to do them, that kind of thing, as opposed to more specific directions. But there will be feedback.
And one day you open our wonderful playground, Tim.
How did I miss that?
I don't know. You've got an amazing program, Ranfully.
Because you did your report before this.
I had to write this to get it in, Stu.
Must be welcome.
Because it was wonderful. It was
A cold morning.
a crowd of kids just screaming to be the
Kids love it.
first one on the slide, just one of the ones that probably went on the slide before it was open.
Yeah.
Did they push you out of the road?
They pushed you out, no, yeah.
Stu's been on the slide for a long time.
It's not that slide though. Not that slide.
That was
I've been on the slippery slope for a long time.
Whoever's keeping the record of the score between you two, you get 2 points for that.
2 points.
2 points.
I'll move the mayor's report.
Oh, thank you. Tony will second that. All those in favour? Aye, and against, carried. We now have the governance report on page 182, which includes the council status report and the CODC business plan review for October through to March. So looking at the council status report first, is there anything on that that anyone would like to raise or comment on? We'll move these together, but we'll just take them in turn. Any comments on any of that stuff, folks? Okay, then we'll move on to the business plan, which you will find at page 215. Anything in there that folks would like to comment or query? Pretty easy then. So if we go back to page 218, that sounds unlikely actually. 182, I should say. I think we simply received them. I'm just going to take myself here. Council receives those reports. So you can move that?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you, Martin. Will second it. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Now we go to page 218, which is the community board reports. And we have them from the usual suspects. In fact, we've only got the Vincent one this time.
Vincent, Idiot, Cromwell,
Yeah.
and then the hearing.
Yeah, because page 218 only talks about Vincent. Let's not got that one. But anyway, everyone happy with those? Board members, councillors are on boards, all happy with them?
It's the wonders of iPads.
Yeah, aren't they great? Just the best. Somebody want to move? Then, thank you, Martin. Second, Tracy. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. All those against? That's carried. We're about to have a resolution to go into public excluded. And I'll just note at this point, in accordance with item 9.12 in the standing orders, an item of business not on the agenda which cannot be allowed, cannot be delayed. They are allowed to go on the agenda. The item to be dealt with relates to the process for hiring the chief executive officer. The reason it's not on the agenda is simply one of timing, and it wasn't apparent the report would be needed before the agenda was published, and it will be discussed in the non-public session as it potentially details individual people. So can I move and say, well, I'll move that we have that new item accepted, and Tony will second that. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. And now the resolution to exclude the public. Oh, the date of the next meeting, thank you, which is the 28th of June. And now resolution to exclude the public for the reasons found on pages 248 and 249. Still move that. Tony will second it. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much, members of the press. Great to have you here in person today. We'll just take a 5-minute break.
You're going to get a clanger from McKinley, but you got one.
You got it. I'm going to go back and
Nobody's read the